Excellent, and welcome to TADSummit Innovators. We are proud to have Matthew Hodgson here from Matrix and Element. Matthew, please introduce yourself.
Oh, thanks, Alan. Thanks, Johnny, for having me on. So I'm Matthew Hodgson. I'm CEO, CTO for Element, but I'm also project lead for Matrix, the open source project for secure decentralized communication that I began almost 10 years ago, depressingly.
Yeah.
And the Element exists to provide commercial solutions for.
Perfect. Excellent. So maybe you've already shared with us in sort of we were doing the pre-sync, you could sort of share some of the recent highlights of what's been going on.
Okay, so I mean, as I said, Matrix is this big open ecosystem for decentralized communication. It basically allows anybody to go and run their own communication infrastructure. It could be messaging, it could be VoIP, it could be video conferencing, it can even be IoT or VR. And you can pick up your own Matrix server, either written by us or somebody else, and run it as part of one great big decentralized communication mesh. We're up to about 141 million users across the public network now, and about 100,000 deployments, which is obviously big. It's not as big as, I don't know, the web now, but we're trying to be the communication layer basically for the open web. And then on the Element side, we've discovered, well, basically when we built Matrix, we thought we were democratizing communication, decentralizing it, empowering anybody to run their own comms. It's a bit of a disruptive ploy. And then it turned out that the people who really want this are governments, because it turns out the governments really like to run their own communication infrastructure, do it on their own terms. So we've had a lot of traction that just keeps accelerating on the Element side, with big governments and international government organizations coming on board, wanting to use Matrix as a secure way to communicate. And one that we announced on Monday was the United Nations.
Congratulations.
It's the big one.
But that's a lot of governments. Oh, by the way, it's Tyrone, Johnny Tyrone. Just so. Alan, you didn't introduce me to Matthew.
Oh, I'm sorry. We got it there. Sorry. So and then there was another announcement I saw. I think it was.
Yes, we've got a whole bunch of them. In fact, we've got so many at the moment that we forgot one by accident. One that we announced yesterday was Big Blue Button, which is the video conferencing vendor who's partnering with us on video conferencing.
Oh, so they're using you for the video as well. So it's not just for messaging.
That's the hope.
Gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're looking at converging basically both the messaging and the video on Matrix as the underlying communication protocol, because I believe at the moment they don't have end-to-end encryption in there at all. And what we provided Matrix is a layer called Matrix RTC, which basically uses WebRTC for the media, and then Matrix for the end-to-end encryption and security layer. So they're looking at using us for that, but also Moodle, who are the world's biggest learning management system, used by all of the universities and high schools, particularly since COVID, as a way of managing all of your coursework and classes, etc., has adopted Matrix as the way to communicate, which is really exciting because suddenly all of these universities have a common secure communication backplane rather than, I don't know, using Teams or Slack or some other unencrypted, centralized solution. So really fun to see Moodle partnering up. And we forgot to announce it, so apologies.
But it's good to have so many customers coming on board. Now,
it's funny, universities are a big conversation nowadays in the US. They're going to need this more than anybody. They're under attack for many different reasons. Same way the whole world is an attack. So just back to your United Nations deal. How is that? Is it United Nations as the entity, or is it, how is that deal worked? I'm just fascinated by it. I mean, I live right down the street from there.
Don't quote me on this, but I don't think the United Nations actually exists as a legal entity. I think it is literally defined as the combination of all the various different component orgs. The one that we're working with is the UNICC, which is the International Computing Center. It's basically the IT arm that goes and provides IT infrastructure for all the other guys, whether that's UNICEF or, I don't know, the World Health Organization or any of the other
agencies from there. Excellent. Okay.
Well, I mean, look, they connect the world. It's incredibly important. I mean,
and then are you hosting it, or you helping implement different instances of Matrix Server for the different agencies?
Matrix is a perfect match for their use case. Yeah, so basically all the agencies will need to run it on their own premises, in their own jurisdiction, in the right countries. And it needs to be subject to diplomatic privileges and immunities that you get if you are working for the UN in a given host country. You are there under kind of diplomatic protection.
Yeah.
So you need to have your comms protected, not just against attackers from the outside, but potentially inquisitive local state that you might be working alongside. So it doesn't get much more special than this. The sort of use cases we're looking at are shipping servers in international waters, or burying them in a mountain in Switzerland, or whatever. But the very nature of Matrix is that you get this zero trust decentralized communication fabric where everyone can run it on their own terms. And UNICC will go and provide the building blocks which have been verified and set up to work with a wider organization, but then they would be deployed into whatever infrastructure is available.
Gotcha. Interesting. Wow. So, so you're providing the servers, and then are you managing it, or are they taking over and managing it? I'm just trying to get a feel for how the deal's structured in such a vast deployment. I mean, is it the UN IT services?
Yeah, so it's effectively IT services guys who run it and manage it. So
gotcha.
we provide the enterprise distribution, which is called Element Server Suite, which is a whole bunch of our open source technology from Matrix, and then puts it into a big Kubernetes operator, so that we provide the long-term supported version, we provide level 3 support, and we also provide lots of enterprise commercial features in order to pay the bills on the Element side. So it's things like antivirus integration, audit capability if you need a compliance record of what's going on, border gateways. So if you're going to have different organizations connecting together, how do you protect your network perimeter from each other, much like you get with email. Cross-domain gateways is a fun one. So hardware appliances for connecting air gaps together, which we spent a lot of time getting right for Matrix, because again, the nature is that people often deploy this in a secret or other classification environment. And it's no good if you have a whole bunch of people who can talk to one another if they're on a secret air gap network, but then they want to reach out to somebody on the internet. What do? So you need to have some kind of hardware appliance that goes and breaks down the whole protocol, checks that you're not secretly smuggling data out, and then rebuilds it and sends it on its way. So that's some of the commercial things which we built.
Gotcha. And then I guess it includes like compliance as well. So, ensuring sort of data integrity or data protection, that one entity can have access to particular data that another UN entity can't. I don't know. I'm just trying to get a feel for
who sees the data. That's a big issue. I mean, who sees the data? I mean,
it's zero trust. So nobody sees the data other than on the physical device where they see it. So even if somebody compromised the server, because it's end-to-end encrypted, they're not going to be able to see the record of what is going on. And then that data gets replicated equally between the servers. So if you had, I don't know, somebody in one bit of the UN talking to somebody in a different organization, each bit will equally kind of multilaterally own that conversation data. But then again, if the server gets compromised, it can't leak.
Gotcha. Understood. That's clear. Cool.
It's never been more important. What's never been more important? It's amazing. You started this 10 years ago. I was telling Alan, you're still in the top 10 of podcasts. So you've gotten the most innovative podcast views that we've had yet, even ahead of Robert Viz from Bird, who just recently came on. So Matthew Beecham, and he did that 8 years ago, and now had like 7 people watch, thousands and thousands of views. So look, we need to get this message out. It's very important what you're doing. Messaging is obviously a critical infrastructure. Although in the USA they like to call it an IP service. It's like email. But that's another conversation we've been screaming about. But this is absolutely fascinating. So how do we buy stock in Matrix?
Well, Matrix itself is non-profit, so you're welcome to buy as much stock as you like, but it might not be going anywhere. On the Element side, we're a VC-funded Series B startup. We've raised about $50 million so far in order to go and build these enterprise distributions of Matrix for people like NATO, the UN, the DoD, UK, MOD. There's a lot of public sector, as I said, which tends to be education, healthcare, and defense. Particularly defense, as the geopolitical circumstances make people, as you say, very aware of the importance of encrypted comms that they run themselves. You don't want to have a situation where, I don't know, a country like Sweden suddenly can't communicate because links to Microsoft have gone down, or they can't talk to the US. It would be bananas. So instead, they've just published, in fact, a white paper for the government called DSAM, which says we shall use Matrix as the way for the public sector to communicate. All the ministries have headed off. And it's why Rocket Chat and Mattermost, some of the other open source communication tools, have adopted Matrix, because they were already working with Sweden. And Sweden said, look, let's get everybody on the same protocol so that we can self-host and interoperate rather than being dependent on someone like Microsoft or Slack.
Excellent.
Wow, that's huge. Sweden, and that's where Cinch is from, right? You mean they don't want to use SS7? They're not going to use SS7, Matthew?
I think the Matrix hopefully might replace SS7 and SIP eventually. Hopefully.
There's some. Well, the FCC in the USA is now jumping in on the SS7. A lot of issues with that, as you know. This is really exciting.
So maybe what I'd like to do is, because I think that we had a good chat around some of the current deployments, but I think jumping up a level to what was the vision? Why did you kick this off 10 years ago, to help people understand the origin and maybe share some of your learnings, trials and tribulations over the past 10 years in taking that vision and making it a reality?
Oh, wow. God, how many hours have we got here?
Abridged version.
The story is that about 10 years ago, I was working for Amdocs, the Israeli telecoms vendor, running their unified communications division with my co-founder, Amandine. I was playing with computers. She worries about the business side of things. And we were getting quite frustrated with selling things to the PSTN. We were going and we'd built an over-the-top messaging app called Amdocs UC that we sold to Tim Brazil, and we sold to Pearl Group. And it wasn't really taking off relative to WhatsApp. So for instance, in Brazil at the time, we got to 11% market penetration, I think, for Tim Brazil, which for an over-the-top messaging app is crazy. Must have been the best OTT app anybody did. And at the same time, WhatsApp had 97% market penetration, and that was 2013.
Yes.
So how do you compete against WhatsApp in that instance? And now the team had already been together since 2002. So the core team has been at Matrix now for 20 odd years. And originally all we did was SIP. So we built soft switches and scalable voice and video message infrastructure. Then we added XMPP into it for messaging. And that was the basis of the Amdocs product. But we basically sat down at an offsite in Dublin one day and said, guys, this is not going to go anywhere. How do we actually compete against WhatsApp? How do you go and disrupt this? And we said, well, clearly you build a new communication system that replaces the phone network, replaces SS7, replaces SIP and IMS. It could also replace email if we get this right, but it will literally be the missing communication layer of the web. Obviously, it will use web technologies like WebRTC, and it will use HTTP for signaling, and it will be something really familiar to anybody who's ever used a CPaaS. Like anyone who's ever used Twilio or Cinch or whatever your favorite CPaaS might be, should be able to see this tech and feel, okay, I know what happens. If I want to send a message, I just hit my server, and if I receive a message, I hit the server, and that's it. But it would be done as a standard that anybody could run themselves. So you can kind of think of Matrix, if you squint a little, to be like a big decentralized CPaaS that nobody owns, that goes and disrupts everything else, because it does then become a communication platform for the internet as a whole. So that was the origin. And what I did was to go to a WebRTC conference in Madrid, if I remember correctly, and find the person who I thought knew the most about disruptive telecommunication technologies, who's a guy called Alan Quayle, and said, hey, Alan, we're really fed up with building IMS and SIP and RCS-based communication solutions. If we went and disrupted the hell out of this, do you think it would work? To which he actually said, I think, yeah, why not? Give it a go. Don't know how you make it, give it a punt. And
from a technology perspective, I wholeheartedly agreed. It was just, how do you make money out of it? That it was like, yes, absolutely. But the key is, as always, it's that path to monetization. And that, I think, is, you provided a great example over the years in, and you've had to move around a little bit, and you've brought on, with Status, an investor who got where your endpoint was and understood that what you were building is a communications layer for the vision that they were trying to create as well. So I think it's, amassing a sort of different elements of the willing and had the vision to see where you're going. Now, you've alluded to it, but I really would like, where do you see, Matrix going? Because you said it's a communications layer for the web. But, okay, nice big vision, but we've got many different communications layers out there. You've already referred to WhatsApp. In fact, I was just posting on LinkedIn, Webio, who are another TADSummit Innovators company. They did an excellent podcast. We've got another one coming up soon where they'll be demoing their product. And they were talking about just how effective WhatsApp is as a communications layer. Now, they use SMS, they use voice, they use multiple channels, but they were just very frankly saying, for our business with, our customers, WhatsApp's great. So how do you see, because you built something to compete with WhatsApp, that was the sort of embryo. How do you see the sort of future?
I don't see governments using WhatsApp.
Well, yeah.
In the UK, they do, depressingly. Yes. It's like a national scandal.
Come on.
Yes. That's it. But that particular government, hey, they had so many scandals anyway. It was just one to a litany. But looking into the future, how do you see this evolving?
Yeah, it's an interesting turning point. I mean, when we began, I think we were quite ahead of the curve, and people didn't understand the concept of the importance of running your own infrastructure, and thought that, depending on Facebook would be fine. And then we saw sort of election interference and the surveillance capitalism problems and all the other interesting things which turned up in 2016. And as the years have gone by, folks have converged more on us. In terms of the journey to date, we've certainly moved around a bit. At first, it was like, do everything. Let's try to launch a consumer WhatsApp killer, and which is basically what Element has turned into, except we then narrowed it down to try to go after enterprise. And it turned out that at the time, enterprise is quite happy using Teams because you get it for free. It doesn't matter that it's not encrypted. Nobody got fired for using Microsoft, that kind of mentality. But then governments, starting in 2017 with France, said, right, we're going to roll it out across the whole country.
Gotcha.
17 ministries.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I need to cut in. So I don't know if you've seen all the lawsuits on Wall Street with using WhatsApp and disappearing messages. I'm talking, hundreds of millions of dollars, Goldman Sachs, you name it. I would think Matrix, and maybe you're just not telling us, has to be in the financial services industry. I mean, that's where your gold mine is. Your gold mine is in financial services, especially with all the litigation. Because look, financial services, there's a lot of crooked shit going on with the SEC and different companies and who gets caught or doesn't get caught. We just had a guy who made like $7 billion disappear on 5 SPACs and got away with it. Why? Because he hired the former general counsel of the SEC. But then Goldman Sachs guys are getting caught by disappearing messages on other deals and paying big fines. I got to think, Element, has got to be the choice for the financial services industry.
It could be. Honestly, we haven't focused there yet. As I said, we had really strong product market fit on public
Okay,
side.
I'm on board. I just got hired. I'm selling it.
We also saw that Symphony was doing a lot of work in financial services at around the same time that we started off, and their original pitch sounded a little bit like Matrix. I think it's drifted a lot over the years subsequently. But we don't have financial services in our DNA. I think we will get there eventually, but right now, no, we have every week a new government turns up saying we want what France and Germany, Sweden.
But isn't that the biggest selling point in the world? Like, how does anybody compete? So for an educated consumer to say, I want to use what the governments are using, or I want to use what Mark Zuckerberg's using. Like, how do you compare? Like, how is there even an intellectual comparison between what Element does, who their customers are, and anybody else? The way I see it, and the reason why you've raised $50 million, is because you're so important. And you've never been more important than today, obviously, with the United Nations deal. I mean, the world is fragmented. Nobody knows who's on anybody's team, but yet business has got to continue.
Yeah.
You know, me and Alan did a little piece the other day about people talking about decoupling China from the West. It's not going to happen. It's too many trillions of dollars going back and forth. So all of this is going to happen, but things are going to have to be secured. So I'm just blown away. And
that's very interesting.
I love the Alan Quayle plug because I'm a big Alan Quayle fan, obviously. So, Alan, you make a short out of that one.
I will, but on financial services, we've been here before several times because I'm sure you can all remember AOL IM. Traders used that like crazy, and then they basically made an instance that worked, and then of course AOL went the way AOL went, and of course then next messaging easy to use because the key is people are lazy, and the traders are like they're all using WhatsApp, so then that was used for a lot of sharing trading,
but now they can't.
Well, exactly.
They can't.
But
and then the high-profile agent groups can't.
No, and then of course, Symphony was it still is. But you know how it is. I guess there's one thing that I like about how FreeSwitch, and SignalWire and Element and Matrix, because you have that open source fundamental, that basis, there's like a core truth to the business. Rather than it just being closed and it's like, so how do we make money this year? How do we make more money this year? So it sort of sends in a certain direction that always tends to hit a wall. So that's why I like the way, because you've got that open source space, because, it's not focused at the moment, because hell, government, it's massive, it's difficult, it's complex. A lot of your core principles are highly aligned there. So
no, it's important. What he does is important.
Yeah.
You're missing. What he does is important. Moving money is important. We just had to deal with Airwallex and Bird. Moving money has never been more important than today.
True.
Right?
Absolutely.
You've got currencies having to be, dissected within milliseconds. So look, I think this is just been mind-blowing for me. And look, I don't think Matrix has to make money. I mean, at the end of the day, Matrix is important.
Yeah.
It doesn't. No, I'm not talking Matrix, Element, the combination two. At the end of the day, the fact that he's so ingrained now in government communications, no longer a question about economics. It's a question of how the public can also take advantage of what the smarter people that need security.
Yeah.
I would say there's probably now more than ever in the United States, 20 to 30%, maybe 10, 20% of the population that is frantic on security. Yeah. And some people literally think WhatsApp is secure. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's completely insane. So now you have something that the pitch is, well, I don't know, Sweden's using it, or the United Nations using it, or, governments are using it and military groups are using it. Why wouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't anybody with that mindset is your consumer? So
I guess the challenge that we have is on the enterprise side, you have Microsoft giving away Teams for free, effectively. If you use Office 365, you feel that you got it for free, and so it has a lot of traction there. Then you got
they're now supposed to charge, so there's been regulations forcing them to charge, but it's there, it's embedded, and it works good enough as long as it's only within your organization. Within that, as soon as you have to go outside, it just sucks bad.
Yeah, and then you got the cool kids using Slack, paying way too much money for it, feeling that they're held hostage. And then you have the consumers, as you say, using WhatsApp or iMessage or possibly Signal if they're feeling particularly snazzy. And you're right, depending on WhatsApp as a product from an ad company that specializes in surveillance capitalism, might not be the best thing if you actually care about security. But it's got 2 billion users on it. So it has the network.
Yeah, but it's got 2 billion users on it, not mostly in the USA. I mean, a lot of people commute because they don't have an option and they're not educated. So what you're not doing is educating the American public. So here's my advice, marketing advice to you. You'll be the most important company in America with just a simple marketing message. It's a simple messaging that you need to get to Americans. You really want to be secure? Well, come here, because they are. It's a simple ad. I do a 30-second spot. You watch how many, look, we have the craziest people in the world living right here in America. I don't care where you go in the world. I've traveled, I've been everywhere. I've been all in America. There's no place on earth that has more crazy people, but also no place on earth that cares more about their security.
Yes.
Or what matters to them. How the hell are you guys not marketing the shit out of this in the US? For the life of me. So I don't know. I'm on board.
The path to consumer is interesting. Yeah, path to consumer, I think, that's the massive win.
It's consumer and enterprise. Look, the FTC is now ruling on non-competes, right?
Yep.
You know what's going to happen there? You're going to have companies that are going to be it's giving the power to the people.
Yeah.
Right. Now, will it get overturned by the Supreme Court? Who knows? But the point is, they're kind of non-existent. Yeah. So what you're doing is you're giving power to the people, power to the consumers that no longer trust anybody. Look at all the data breaches. Look at the one with United Healthcare. Look at AT&T recently. Look at Alex that got hit on YouMail. Nobody trusts anybody anymore. But now if you've got a company like Element that is trusted by the government, look, Matthew can't screw up. He's not allowed to.
Yeah.
Other companies can say, hey, oh, we're sorry, we gave everything away. Oh, we're sorry, all your information's gone. No, we're not liable though. I mean, to think about how important what Element does. And I know I'm going in different tangents.
Yeah, exactly.
But your demographic is right here.
Your
demographic is right here.
Is the path to consumer, as Alan says. I mean, sure, there's loads of money to be made on the FinServ side of things if we wanted to go there. But the really big, interesting thing is how do you get literally billions, like not just 2 billions, but 10 billion people onto the network? And it's not immediately clear what the direction is. Now, a weird thing that we did was to work a lot with the European Union and the European Commission on the Digital Markets Act, which is their antitrust regulation. And Matrix was used as the template by them for interoperability between messaging providers. Now, ironically, only one of them has been identified as in scope of this regulation, which is WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, i.e. Meta. So we've ended up working a lot with them over the last 4 or 5 months to figure out how you do interop between the 2 billion users on WhatsApp and Matrix and Element. And we did it. We went and implemented the integration. I think we were the first people to do official interop. And honestly, it was quite weird because it's a real flashback to doing integrations between telcos. It felt like we were doing an SS7 interconnect, complete with a 50-page contract that you have to sign, but access to the other networks. So now everything old is new again. It remains to be seen how that pans out.
Yeah,
but it was certainly a slightly out-of-the-box approach to see how we might be able to, at least integrate with the incumbent and then see whether there is a way to basically do what the regulation is there to do, to break them open and let other new people like us come on board.
Now, with it, well, let's say
that's huge.
WhatsApp Matrix, it works. The EU forces it. It becomes now. You can use whatever's your preferred server for talking to your customers, whether it's over WhatsApp. But if, say, from a messaging, so I'm just talking from a messaging perspective. I know there's all the voice, video, and all the others, but I'm just simple, baby steps. Do you think the EU would force the carriers on SMS to then do that type of interop? Given that's a similar, basically sort of monopoly. I mean, it's not entirely the same, but I'm just wondering if you can prove WhatsApp works and it's successful as a net benefit for society. Do you think a next step would be to look over at what's happening in messaging? SMS, sorry.
Yeah, I think we will absolutely see that. And I think it's revealing that the people who turn up to the workshops in Brussels for DMA are a handful of smaller companies like ourselves. Wire would turn up, and a bunch of big companies like Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Skype, and then the telcos en masse. So you get Deutsche Telekom, that would have Orange Group, France, whoever it is, and a bunch of others. So I think the telcos are definitely looking at how the forced interoperability without, and also free interconnect and without interconnect charging is going down, at least in the OTT space, because it may well end up coming for them on the PSTN side.
Yeah, interesting. That's an interesting future you're showing there. So that really does show the importance of that work that the EU forced between sort of WhatsApp and your open model. So that's really cool.
Yeah, whether we actually put it to market is to be determined. We're still trying to figure out.
I know there's a big gap.
Back to America, you foreign voice. Back to America.
Okay. Back to you. Yes, Johnny.
We've got two fringes in our country. You've got the left, the far left, and the far right. All you need is them, because they're the ones that are fanatically and panicky and whatever you want to call them, the extreme people that need the security. I don't see how you don't get 30 million customers, literally, in like a month with just the right media, both sides.
Yeah.
Both sides protecting one from the other side. Get in the middle. It's and it's only happening. Look, I grew up in this country. It's crazy. You don't know who anybody is. I grew up in a country where nobody cared who was a Democrat and a Republican. Yeah. Now you got like fist fights. I had a guy in our neighborhood had a fight with a neighbor across the street for 30 years because, one's a Democrat, one's a Republican. They're fighting. I'm like, this is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But look, use it to people want security.
Yeah.
WhatsApp is not killing it in the U.S., no matter what you say. It's just not. But if you can come out with secure messaging, you got people selling phones that are secure. And God knows what Elon's up to over there. And I mean, look at the hilariousness of Truth Social. Do you realize that Truth Social has $3 billion in revenue and has got a $4.5 billion valuation, and they're losing millions of dollars? And Alan, you're asking him, how do you make money? You make money on the public markets because there's a value to that. So Matthew, let's go public, man.
Well, what I'm hearing is I should run for president.
You don't want to run for president. First of all, you're not old enough. That's number one.
Country too.
Yeah,
you're in the wrong country. Why would you want to be involved as a president? But your tools and what you spent 10 years building, it's important today. What you built today is important to consumers. It's important to governments. It's important secrecy. It's privacy. Everything involved. And if you can even give somebody just this much more of a comfort, you got a customer. And Teams and all these other products, Slack and whatever, they could easily be displaced.
Well,
at the end of the day, by the consumer.
Yeah.
Well, this is the hope, I guess, that by creating it as an open ecosystem that anybody can participate in, it's not just Element in there. You've got small players, like Beeper, for instance, is a fork of Element. They got bought by Automatic last week for 125 million.
I know.
You've got smaller players like Famedly, who do healthcare in Germany. And then you've got big players who use Matrix, like Thales, the biggest defense company in France. Palantir's entire chat product is a fork of Element. You know, there are a lot of interesting deployments, for better or worse, out there on top of Matrix. So you couldn't kill it even if you wanted.
And Ericsson's using you too. So it's kind of like the little spot that we did. So Anthony Minicelli did this brilliant short. It's my favorite short of all time. Alan, send it over to him, where he walks by Cisco and everybody else going, yeah, he uses FreeSwitch. Yeah, they're using FreeSwitch.
Yes, you should do a version. Yes.
No, he's not going to do it. He's too politically correct. You have to do it. You have to do it for him.
Yes, of course they're using Matrix.
I think you need to do that spot to make people understand, because we got Minicelli who's with us and on the side of doing things that are important in a different way with FreeSwitch. But I mean, you just take it to another level.
That's cool.
With governments and stuff. I mean, you got Ericsson, Palantir, everybody's using your stuff. I mean, are you kidding? I mean, that's your marketing pitch. That is your marketing. That's your whole. Who runs your marketing? Really?
We have a fairly good in-house marketing team for Element.
No, but doing a great team getting customers and clients. But man, if you talk about, you're like a secret for the public.
Well, it'd be interesting to see if we can cross the chasm from public sector, where we definitely have critical mass now. I think we're up to about 20 different governments, and because it's open source, some of them use it without us anyway. As I say, you can't kill it off. Even if Element went bang tomorrow, other people would just pop up providing the same services.
There's one new government you don't have, and it's called the Swifties, and there's a billion of them, and they're running roughshod over everybody. I think the Swifties need to find out. Imagine them finding out about this.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I live with at least 4 of them.
You know, I'm a telco Swiftie. So just so you know, it's a phenomenon.
Yep, absolutely.
This is exciting.
Cool.
This is exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we'll keep an eye on this one and definitely have you back for a more focused discussion. But this has been great.
I want a job, and I've never had one. I've actually never been employed. I want to come work for you.
Well, when we do our big US invasion eventually, I'll definitely be in touch, Johnny.
No, absolutely. No, this has been great.
Listen, shutting me up is going to be really hard to do.
Why would you want to? I mean,
you just invaded the US. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah, Johnny's just going to lead the charge. Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much.
More often, Alan, if every time we sing, it's like another step change in the trajectory of Matrix.
Anyway, take care, and I'll speak to you both soon, okay?
Brilliant. Thanks for having me on. Good to speak.
Bye-bye.